puzzled by the claim that the government can control the spread of a virus as little as it can control the tides when we wiped out smallpox. We have killed,
Smallpox is not a virus.
We have...
But I think that the point that's being made here, Peter, is that that while, of course, there is, as it were, a natural component to the spread of this virus, policy makes a huge difference in the way that it is spread through a society. So there are countries with radically lower death rates than, for example, the UK. And in large part, that is a function, the thought is, of their failure to protect the people at the front line. Their failure, for example, to provide them with personal protective equipment. I mean, that's a way to stop the virus. Give them PPE.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that doesn't stop anything, and also your assertion. I have to say, I don't accept your assertion that government action can be shown to have made any difference. You can look at every country in which the virus has been present, and you can find no pattern of congruence between the actions taken by government and the levels of deaths in those countries. There is no such pattern. It cannot be demonstrated. What is more, there is strong evidence recently collected against his will by Governor Cuomo of New York State that among hospital admissions for people since he instituted his shutdown of that state, among hospital admissions for people for coronavirus, which means quite serious cases, 66% of those admitted had been observing the instruction to stay at home. So it seems to me that we have a problem here which doesn't actually turn out to be as simple as we thought. And half my argument has been from the start, if you look at every country that is involved rather than selecting a few, you cannot find a pattern even of correlation, let alone of causation, which suggests that any particular government action has been effective in controlling the spread of the virus, particularly in the only objective measure which we really have of its spread, which is the number of deaths it's caused.
I just have to dispute that. I mean,
Go ahead.
Compare what's happened in England and Ireland, for example.
Yes.
Very clear. I know that one is a big country and the other is a small country, but Ireland acted extremely quickly, extremely clearly, and they've kept the spread of the virus as well as the number of fatalities to a tiny amount of what England, with very confusing directions from the government, have done. I think. Can you
give me deaths per million figures for that?
Oh, come on.
No, this is the assertions being made. My understanding is that the deaths per million in Ireland are very similar to those in Sweden.
Okay, I don't have those numbers with me.
Well, in that case, it seems to me that the assertion should not be made unless you do. And it's a very major assertion.
Yeah, the major.
I'm saying I don't know. You're saying you do. If you say you do, you have to come up with evidence for what you say.
Okay, Hitchens, you made the assertion that smallpox is not a virus. Is that your view?
Well, is it a virus?
Yes. You don't know that, and yet you feel comfortable going on about a biological phenomenon about which you obviously know nothing.
The smallpox reappear in different forms every year?
No, it doesn't.
No.
You know how it was eradicated? I mean, the ignorance here is absolutely stunning.
What is the ignorance?
You don't know what smallpox is. You don't know what the immune system is or how it was eradicated.
I was injected against smallpox at the age of about 2 or 3. I know that about it.
Smallpox is a virus, and it has been eradicated through vaccines. And what a vaccine does is creates antibodies in a person that attack the pathogen, in this case, the smallpox virus, so that eventually, if everybody is immune to it, the smallpox virus ceases to have a life. You ought to know that if you're going to make it very strong.
Here's your point. It's been eradicated through a vaccination originated by Jenner several hundred years ago.
Yeah, isn't that
out of cowpox, and because it was the same thing, and it's been eradicated. Viruses change every year. Are you telling me that smallpox is the same as coronavirus?
No, of course not. And viruses come in many different forms and in many different varieties. And a coronavirus is called that because it has these very particular proteins on its extremities. Other viruses behave in very different ways. Ebola is a virus you might be interested to know.
Well, I might be interested to know, yes.
Yeah, you might. And it can help you, I think, kind of understand how we deal with pandemics and why vaccines work. But not every virus mutates in the way that certain influenza viruses mutate. And those influenza viruses that mutate every year are really very different from coronavirus, from smallpox. So it's actually helpful to know the science, especially before you start off.
And the facts.
I raised the smallpox claim as part of a general claim because I was quite struck by Peter's claim that the government can no more protect us from illness.
Absolutely.
Than it can.
Absolutely wrong.
Well, it's okay. So, all right. Well, here I am. I admit.
Peter,
Wait a minute. I have made a mistake.
Yes,
The point remains the same. Smallpox took hundreds of years to eradicate.
The point does not remain the same because the
It
general...
is not, and I think everybody here will accept. The smallpox is not comparable to coronavirus.
It doesn't mean we can't get a vaccine.
Mr.
I
Hitchens,
didn't say you couldn't get a vaccine. I'm saying that you can't simply control it in the way that you can simply say, right, the government is attacking this disease, and it will therefore stop it. Hundreds of years between Jenner and the eradication of smallpox.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, I've got no idea.
I'm afraid the difficulty with Zoom is that only one person can be heard at any one time. Susan, so that's why I'd like now to ask you to respond to Peter, and then after that, I'm going to come to you for some closing thoughts. So, Susan, would you like now to respond?
yes, the reason that I brought up the smallpox example was not to get lost in a question of viruses versus bacteria. It actually answered the question that Peter Marks answered the question I originally posed, which is why is it that conservatives seem to always fall on the side of the economy über alles? And I think the reason is that you have, whether or not it's conscious, a belief that government policy can't really change anything much.